a couple of weeks ago, we had a special event here at CUUB. CUUB hosted the Sierra Club for a Monday meatless meal, and a couple of you folks were there. It was a marvelous networking opportunity for me to get to know some of the other local leaders in the environmental movement here in Livingston County. The entire meal was designed as an environmentally friendly event. It was meatless for a reason, to have a lower carbon footprint. Food generates about a quarter of human greenhouse gases, and half of that comes from livestock. Plant-based foods have a lower environmental impact than foods higher up on the food chain. So a meatless meal is environmentally friendlier than other options. Moreover, the participants bring, and I love this part, the participants bring their own dishes, their own silverware, and their own napkins. No disposable dishes, no disposable silverware, no paper napkins, also for a lower environmental impact. Now, I made a boo-boo with this. I saw some people didn't have napkins, so I went to our little kitchenette and brought out the paper napkins. I was chided for that. Our hosting fell short in only one way, composting. We weren't able to handle the compostable remnants of the meal. We do have 2 unused compost bins outdoors, but we got to prep them and feed them and put those little things in them to get it to work and actually start using them for small-sized composting. CUUB, as a Green Sanctuary congregation, is a perfect host for such a Sierra Club event. Unitarian Universalists and the Sierra Club have shared values about caring for the environment. As Unitarian Universalists, we honor the interdependent web of all existence. With reverence for the great web of life and with humility, we acknowledge our place in it. We covenant to protect Earth and all beings from exploitation. We will create and nurture sustainable relationships of care and respect, mutuality and justice. We will work to repair harm and damaged relationships. That comes from our shared Unitarian Universalist values. For many of us, Mother Nature is also a source of inspiration and grounding. We like to go take walks in the forest, camp in the woods, walk on the trails, cross-country skiing in the wintertime. As Neil deGrasse Tyson says, we are stardust brought to life, then empowered by the universe to figure itself out. And we have only just begun. Earlier this year, the Unitarian Universalist Association unveiled its revised Green Sanctuary 2030 Mobilizing for Climate Justice program. And CUUB is a Green Sanctuary congregation. Climate justice refers to the interdependence of humans and their environments. What we do to the environment also affects human lives. It's a matter of justice, because environmental problems most heavily impact people who are already living on the edge of human existence. So I ironically drink a sip of water not to have a dry mouth, as I'm about to talk about Flint's water problem. Flint's water is a great example of climate justice and interdependence. In 2014, Flint was under state control with an unelected emergency financial manager appointed by the Republican governor. In order to save money, Flint switched its water supply from Detroit Water and Sewerage Department, which got its water from Lake Huron, to the Flint River. The Flint River is heavily polluted with corrosive chemicals from decades of industry runoff from the auto industry. And again, to save money, the unelected manager made sure that the water was not properly treated to clean out the chemicals. The polluted water damaged the water pipes that then leached lead into the drinking water supply. In less than a year's time, Flint had a healthcare crisis on its hands. Residents, especially children, experienced cognitive defects, mental health problems, and other health issues. Some people had hair fall off their bodies because of the chemicals, the untreated chemicals in the water. This healthcare crisis disproportionately affected Flint's low-income and Black communities. Eventually, 2 years later, a Michigan State task force investigated the debacle. It concluded that the unelected Flint officials, and I quote, from a regulatory standpoint to a protection of human health and the environment standpoint, they missed the boat completely, end quote. Furthermore, the officials responded to the public with, quote, aggressive dismissal, belittlement, and attempts to discredit these efforts, the individuals involved, end quote. Do those quotes ring true today in some other context in our great country? So 2 years later, in 2016, elected officials switched the water supply back, but the damaged pipes remained and the health problems continued. All the lead pipes in Flint, and the public pipes and the private pipes in all the individual houses need to be replaced. Guess how much that's the average cost per household? $7,500. Plus, get this, it also requires $2,500 in permit fees from the city of Flint. You would think that Flint would be able to waive those permit fees for this healthcare crisis. If I were living from paycheck to paycheck, there's no way I could pay $7,500 to have all the pipes replaced in my house. That's outrageously expensive. Flint residents are still dealing with the long-term health impacts of the lead and chemical exposures. The health of some 100,000 individuals is irreparably damaged. The healthcare crisis has already cost Michigan taxpayers $626 million in emergency medical funding for the residents of Flint. It will cost the city of Flint $1.5 billion to replace the damaged water infrastructure in the city. In order to save money, this is how much we're paying now. And the most important problem here is the ongoing chronic healthcare crisis that the 100,000 residents of Flint will be facing for their entire lives. So I have a question for you. And as you might have guessed, it's a rhetorical question. Are you tired of unelected government officials saving money on our behalf? I encourage you to call and write Representative Barrett and also Senators Peters and Senator Slotkin and show up at their offices and at their town hall meetings and voice your concerns about what is going on in our country. The water crisis in Flint is just an awful, awful example of climate injustice. Green Sanctuary. Green Sanctuary 2030 has 4 essential components of climate action. Now, each of the 4 components are unique unto themselves, but each of the components is also directly interrelated into all 4 other components. It's not like you could have one without the others. So the first one is congregational transformation. We are a Green Sanctuary congregation. How can we work together as a congregation to further Green Sanctuary amongst ourselves? This is a good question because we've got 5 core ministry teams here at CUUB: worship, spiritual exploration, social justice, membership, and pastoral care. We also have the board and its subcommittees: finance, safer congregation, ministry, endowment, and nominating. Likewise, we have the self-governing small group ministries here, the men's group, Kindred Spirits, Pottery Studio, Red Tent, and Pickleball. Pickleball's a ministry, right? Okay, it's a small group ministry for sure for us. That's like 15 different groups that are all trying to find ways of working together. And in terms of the politics of our congregation is sort of like a mini example of this governance model that's known as sociocracy, where individual groups cooperate with each other and have a shared governance without any of them having to report to each other and create a hierarchical structure. We're sort of kind of doing that in some way here at CUUB. It's a sign of a very inclusive and broad democratic process at work. So, our congregational commitment to Green Sanctuary, that's not just a project, a single isolated project of the social justice team. It affects the entire congregation. This is our congregational commitment to helping protect and preserve the environment that we live in here on planet Earth. And there is no planet B. We're not moving to Mars if we destroy this planet. There's no other place to go to. Together and individually, and in our various committees and groups and small group ministries, we seek to change the way we're doing things for the environment in order to do things better, to become better stewards of the environment, the planet Earth that we actually live on. The second essential of Green Sanctuary 2030 is community resilience. We're not alone here in our CUUB community, but we're members of a broader network of communities here in Livingston County and beyond. It's sort of like community resilience is sort of like community gardening. There's many different people who are planting many different gardens, and all of those gardens affect and interact with each other. We cultivate communities of care for the environment with other like-minded groups, like, for example, the Sierra Club that we hosted, or the Brighton Garden Club. I noticed this morning that there's flyers from the Brighton Garden Club because there's a Find the Garden Gnomes challenge going on right now this month. So go visit those community gardens in Brighton. Go talk to there's a handful of people, maybe 2 or 3 people who are part of the Brighton Garden Club, who are members of our congregation. Together, all of these local groups cooperate with each other and they prepare for and respond to the climate challenges or climate disruptions that we may face. So, for example, where's Lee? Lee mentioned the flooding in Detroit. On February 17th, and thank you for writing this part of the sermon for me. I copied and pasted out of your email and edited. On February 17th, a 4.5-foot water main broke and flooded a largely Hispanic neighborhood in southwest Detroit. Their basements were flooded, their garages were flooded, their cars were flooded. It affected some 200 families and their homes. Many vehicles were ruined. Many people were not able to get out of the neighborhood in order to be able to go to work because the roads were so flooded and impassable. Some of them lost their jobs because they were not able to get to work for so long. And so there's an urgent need for the help for the victims of this flood. It's a disaster. It's a climate-related disaster. It's an infrastructure disaster. But it's still climate affecting people's lives in a neighborhood where the means are not that great. As a Green Sanctuary congregation, We cooperate with other groups to help with climate disaster and disruption. And the emphasis is on cooperation, to become allies with other people who are affected. So, little cloud here. Our Unitarian Universalist tradition still has the lingering shadow of white supremacy. We have the bad habit of coming in, knowing better, and telling other people what to do because we say so. But we also have a decades-long emphasis on becoming an anti-racist, anti-oppressive, multicultural denomination that seeks to pull these weeds of white supremacy from our gardens. And so instead of coming in and telling people what to do, we become allies. We join with other groups. We listen to other people, and we cooperate with them, sharing our efforts and time and talents and resources together with them to find a common solution. That is an example of climate resilience in action. Climate justice is the third essential of Green Sanctuary 2030. And my Flint example is the example of climate justice. And we're already doing this. We support environmental community thriving around us. Like this winter time when we supported the short-term housing ministry at Chilson Hills Church, where individuals and families were finding themselves homeless, stranded in the horrible weather and needed a place to find shelter. And Chilson Hills, with our support, facilitated emergency temporary shelter for them. The severe weather network of days gone by was a great example of a climate justice initiative that addressed climate issues, how they affected people's lives. The fourth and final essential of Green Sanctuary is mitigation. What are we doing ourselves now as a group to try to lower our environmental impact, like a meatless Monday meal? We try to reduce pollution that drives climate change, both in our club building and our grounds around our building. We do have a very pretty park-like setting, as well as in our individual homes and businesses. Mitigation covers everything. Environmentally friendly cleaning supplies, not those toxic chemicals that are going to leach into the water and into the earth, friendlier chemicals. Composting food waste, return to the cycle of nature. Eliminating printed bulletins. Have we considered eliminating printed bulletins here? We throw out 80 sheets of paper every single week. We throw out a ream of paper every single month with our bulletins. Washing dishes instead of using disposable dishes that go into the garbage and into the landfills. Those are just some examples of mitigating climate justice. Now I'm going to give the hot button issue. Several people have suggested, why don't we get a green parking lot instead of an asphalt parking lot? That would be another mitigation effort for climate justice as a Green Sanctuary congregation. It'll cost more money, though, but it will be environmentally friendlier and serve us for decades as well. We do all sorts of other things also, like we turn down the thermostats, not just to save on the electric bills, but because we don't need to heat an empty space during the course of the week and stuff like that. So the four components of Green Sanctuary 2030, they're all interconnected with each other, and they work together. Congregational transformation, community resilience, climate justice, and mitigation. Together, as a Green Sanctuary congregation, as Unitarian Universalists committed to the ministry of our Green Earth home, we seek to be in right relationships with each other here, but also to be in right relationship with the nature and environment that sustains our lives here, and to be in right relationships with the local communities around us, especially those that are impacted by climate change. We honor the interdependent web of all existence. With reverence for the great web of life and with humility, we acknowledge our place in it. We covenant to protect Earth and all beings from exploitation.